this has absolutely consumed me to the point where I didn't want to go anywhere that day. I was in a bad mood. I was emotional. I lost 52% of my body weight. That is a lot. And especially when you do that in a little less than a year and a half, at first you can't see necessarily the differences in your body. You can't see what other people see. You go from 221 pounds all the way down to 114 pounds in a little over a year. Of course, you have to give yourself some grace. One of the main reasons why I wanted to talk about body dysmorphic disorder or body dysmorphia is because this has been consuming me, and I know for a fact that there are multiple people that are going through the same thing. Today's episode is going to be one that is very personal for me. I know there's going to be a lot of people that don't understand it. They're going to question a lot of things after hearing this one today. I was very reluctant to share this, but I spoke with my therapist, and my doctor thinks it might be actually a good idea because if I'm experiencing it, and I've been very open and honest with my journey, then I'm sure that it will help someone else. Whenever you lose a whole bunch of weight, I lost 110 pounds. I lost 52% of my body weight. That is a lot. And especially when you do that in a little less than a year and a half, at first you can't see necessarily the differences in your body. You can't see what other people see. You know that you've lost the weight because when you go to buy clothes and things of this nature, you're not buying extra larges, 2Xs, things of this nature. You're buying smalls or mediums or extra, whatever size that you're in. So you know that you've lost the weight. Don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure that out. It doesn't immediately take form in your brain, and it takes a while. And there's no set time of when it actually is going to start to resonate. At first, when people give you compliments, they come across very backhanded. And even if the intention is, to be sweet or nice, or you genuinely look great, I have talked about this multiple times, but there's a difference between body dysmorphia and negative body image. I realized back in June of this year, or this last year, that I had body dysmorphia. I talked about it a little bit on social media, and I really needed to seek help. It wasn't to a point to where I wasn't able to function on a daily basis, but it started to get that way. It started to get that way. It started to consume me. How I knew that I had body dysmorphia, and like I said in the beginning, it was still questionable because I wasn't sure if that's exactly what was going on. But later confirmed was that I was fixated on certain parts of my body. It started with my legs, to the point where during the summer I refused to wear shorts, even though there might have been, some imperfections in the upper part of my thighs. Wearing shorts would have been fine. I couldn't do it. And then it manifested. It manifested into my face. And every time I looked in the mirror without a filter, social media, you use filters a lot, different kinds of filters. But it got so bad at the end of September that I was afraid to record certain things because I knew that there was something going on, but I was afraid to admit it. By the end of September, and I had just taken a trip a couple weeks before, I knew there was something going on. I had already been talking to one of my doctors about it, and it was more of like this is normal. It will go away or it will get better. Your eyes pretty much need to adjust to the weight loss But give yourself some time, give yourself some grace. Don't be so hard on yourself. You know that you're beautiful. You don't have to, um, or don't allow yourself to convince you otherwise. These aren't real thoughts. You've had a lot of changes, and it could be also hormonal because of all the surgeries. You're probably going through early stages of menopause at 47 years old. And everything sounded great. But then once I got behind closed doors and started making videos, I would make a video and erase it. I would not allow my daughter, my kids to take pictures of me without a filter. And that was an angry thing for them. They were angry, should I say, because they couldn't understand why I felt like this. When you're on social media and you're talking to people, your job, in my eyes, is to build people up, to give them information, to do whatever it is, and get your message out. That way people can identify with you. You can give them tips, you can give them tricks, you can be very, transparent with them. And so if they're going through similar situations, this is one of those things that I touched on. But whenever I would like lead into or start talking about it, it would get me choked up. I was embarrassed because it's not an easy thing. It's not an easy thing. Some people are like, they look at you and they're like, God, I would love to be where you're at. What's wrong with you? Trust me. Trust me when I tell you that I used to ask myself the same question. I would look in the mirror and I would literally focus on one specific part, and it would consume me. It would overwhelm me. It would shut me down for a couple of days. I was finally at a point when I got back from my son's graduation from the Navy where I was like, okay, all right, I know I need to do something about it. I need to be responsible. What do I tell people that follow me on social media? Speak up. Be an advocate for yourself in all ways. You know, practice what you preach. So, as somebody who is pretty versed in these medications, I personally had no education in this matter. The only thing I knew was that I needed to seek more invasive help. I needed to get some more input, find out tips and tricks on how to deal with this. I knew in like a rational mindset, a way of thinking that this was not real. This was a manifestation of change. You go from 221 pounds all the way down to 114 pounds in a little over a year. Of course, you have to give yourself some grace. Of course, time. But you're treated differently too. The way that people talk to you, the way that they treat you. They make eye contact with you. They smile at you. It's a different world. It is living in a smaller body. But beyond that, with body dysmorphia, other people look at you and they don't understand why you feel the way you feel. You don't understand why you feel the way you feel. I would talk to myself before live streams and get myself psyched up. Jennifer, you're fine. There's nothing going on. Your face looks fine. We'll worry about it after the live. And during the live, I'm looking at myself, talking to people, and I'm just disgusted. Absolutely disgusted. Sending pictures with arrows to my plastic surgeon. And in return, she's very nice. And she said, Jen, I know you're dealing with this. There's nothing wrong with your face, honey. And just being an amazing human, just listening, like, okay, so just short of calling you crazy, right? But she's not that kind of person. She's very compassionate. She's very empathetic. So she's like, I want you to understand that there is nothing wrong with your face. You haven't really adjusted yet. Your body and or face might take different form, might look different, but there is nothing wrong with it. You look great. Let's talk about this in a couple of days, or in a very, just talk me off the ledge, so to speak. It's embarrassing because you also don't know where to go or who to talk to because you want to fix it. I wanted to fix it. I didn't want to feel this way. I wanted to be proud of myself. I didn't want to look in the mirror and be disgusted. I'm not ugly. I'm not awful. I'm not. Why do I feel this way? I wish that I could reprogram my brain to see what everybody else sees. But the only advice is to talk through the emotion and the feelings. And again, we go back to the give it time, give yourself some grace. It's difficult, and I still struggle with it. Um, a lot of it has to do with hormones and hormone changes from plastic surgery, multiple surgeries, from weight loss, from working at the dental office, being thrust into basically home health care, taking care of, my stepfather with, helping my mother, and then turning around and traveling all the time, and in between having surgeries and revision. It's been a lot. 2024 was an amazing year. It was a very difficult year. So I know that in time, everything is going to work out, and I'm not going to feel this way. But until then, the best advice is to fake it till you make it, right? When I start having feelings or I start emphasizing on one specific part of my face, I have to literally talk through certain things. There is nothing wrong with your face. You just have to give yourself, over and over again. Why do we feel this? Why is this such a big issue? People reach out, like I said, all the time and ask me if I've ever experienced it. My answer up until now has been mildly. I would say that that is false. It is not true, because when I talked with a therapist about what was going on, she said that I had an obsession with my face, and that she didn't want to use the word body dysmorphia because she didn't want me to allow myself to not process what's going on. I get it. I get it, because people, whenever there's like a diagnosis, people get very resolved to the fact that, okay, well, we know what it is. And, I have body dysmorphia, and they fall into that little, loophole, if you will, or they start becoming comfortable with the fact that they have this. I don't want to ever be comfortable. It is the most uncomfortable that I've ever felt. I feel a little bit like I have imposter syndrome sometimes. I know that other creators, and I know of one specific doctor that did a whole series on imposter syndrome. It's sometimes I feel like I'm living someone else's life. If you think about it, I've accomplished so much in such a short amount of time that it's hard for my brain to process through everything. I lost weight so fast that I don't think I gave myself, or I just didn't have enough time to process it slowly. And that's another drawback to losing weight quickly, is because you don't allow yourself to go through the grieving, if you will. It feels very similar to grief. There are certain things that I loved about myself that I don't see in myself anymore. My mom and I talked about this the other day, and she said, well, do you feel like you loved yourself more then? Absolutely not. But there were certain qualities that I had then that I don't have now, that I wish I could have carried over into my new life. And she said, well, what is that? I don't know what you're talking about. Nobody really saw me because I was so overweight, or I didn't feel like they were going to give me the benefit of the doubt or a chance in conversations. I feel like I was talked at and not to. I was talked over. I didn't have much of a voice. I definitely wasn't stared at when I walked into a room, and if it was probably to poke fun. I was miserable. So I don't want to go back to that. But I also, in a lot of ways, was a lot more outgoing in the sense when I walked into a room, I knew it was going to take a little bit more personality wise to make an opinion or to get that attention or to explain something. I don't really do that much anymore. So my life as I know it has drastically changed. It's not just in the food that I eat or the medication that I take or the social circles or all the travel or the car that I drive. It's you literally feel like you walk out of your life and you're living somebody else's. My daughter, when she moved back from Kentucky, she was walking down the hallway. And I think I touched on this once. She hadn't been here for my weight loss. When she moved back, I was already at my goal weight. And she said, Mom? And I turned around and I said, yeah. She said, I just had this overwhelming, weird feeling. And I go, what's up? And she said, I feel very strange right now. And I go, you okay? She's like, I just don't recognize you. I don't remember you being thin. And I know you're my mom, like, but you are so different. And she said, in a good way, you look amazing, but it just feels very strange to me. Maybe if I had watched the process of you losing the weight, then it would be a lot easier for me, but this feels very strange. You almost feel like a stranger. And I just kind of stood there because I didn't know what to say. She said, I'm sorry, I hope that doesn't hurt your feelings. And I said, not at all, not at all. And I understand. I lost 100 pounds, 52% of my body weight. That's got to be a little jarring, right? That's got to be wild to see that because I know people who have lost that kind of weight. And then when I see them after they lost the weight, it's like, whoa, but it's not my mom. It's not my mom though, right? All right, so body dysmorphia. It's actually referred to as body dysmorphic disorder. The clinical diagnosis or the clinical, whatever you want to call it, definition is obviously we know that it's a mental health problem. It's when someone can be so upset about the appearance of their body that it gets in the way of their ability to live normally. Many of us have what we think are flaws, right? We all acknowledge that there are things that we don't necessarily like about ourselves. It's not that we hate it. There's things that, of course, with money or, face creams or things, there's things about ourselves that we would like to change, and especially as we age. I've noticed that. Um, it also is about when negative, you may find that negative thoughts about your body are hard to control. I'm not an, I don't have anxiety. I'm not an anxious person. When I start hyper focusing on flaws associated with my face, sometimes I can spend hours trying to figure out how to fix it. It is overwhelming at times. It's consuming. It's emotional. So the negative, persistent thoughts, in some cases that can lead to suicide. I have never once had the thought of harming myself, but it has been debilitating to the point where there's been multiple occasions, like I said earlier, where I don't want anybody taking my picture without a filter, or I don't like this angle versus this angle. So how do we move past it? How do we move past it? there, it does make me feel very good to know that this could be a natural occurrence for people who have gone through the changes that I've gone through, not only like perimenopause, but plastic surgery, multiple surgeries, age, and losing half your body weight. All of these things collectively could lead to this. Life experience also contributes to it. Constantly looking in the mirror, and or the flip side is avoiding mirrors. You don't want to look in the mirror at all because it's too difficult. It's a tough pill to swallow for a lot of people, especially on a weight loss journey, because you might have had some curves, you might have had things filled in a little bit. Then you look in the mirror, the skin isn't real tight anymore on your arms. It looks a little bit flabby. It's kind of skinny, but it's there's I try to not allow myself to go into that place, but it's still not easy. It's very difficult. The best thing that I do to get through it, besides obviously medication and therapy appointments and time and grace, is I have little brief conversations with myself when those thoughts surface. Whenever I start hyper focusing on my nose, and here's the wild thing, it is almost never the same thing. I could be hyper focused on the smile, the natural smile lines around my face. This one is a little bit more deep set. Unless I film with the camera flipped. And then this one, look, I'm telling you, there's parts of the last couple of months where are points of time, should I say, that this has absolutely consumed me to the point where I didn't want to go anywhere that day. I was in a bad mood. I was emotional. I was researching procedures to fix my face. One morning I woke up and I was putting my makeup on and I thought, God, my nose, like what's going on with my nose? Within a matter of 2.5 hours, I was trying to make an ear, nose, and throat appointment. Yeah. This is a big problem. People reach out, like I said, all the time. I'm not somebody who works in healthcare. I'm not somebody who has degrees in therapy or, psychotherapy, counseling. But I am somebody who's living with this. And I'm looking forward to the day where hopefully it's just like one magical day where I wake up and I look in the mirror and I'm satisfied with all the work and sacrifice and everything that I have put into myself. And I'm not second guessing how to feel, what I look like. What do people think when they look at me? I know because I have so much confidence now that it doesn't matter what people think, but it doesn't make it any easier on certain days. It's not every day, and that's what's crazy. It's not. It's not every day. But there are days when it's worse. And it literally feels like I have validated what I'm thinking in my head as far as my face. And it's not real. It's not real. I've had conversations with my daughter and I'd say, if you were to see me walking down the street and you were to wave and I smile, what would you, and she'd say, I'd say, you're just a pretty lady. And I'd say, okay, you don't notice anything abnormal about my face? And she's like, no, my nose isn't too, she said, Mom, oh my gosh, like this is awful. Why are you doing this? You never did this before when you were a bigger person. Like, I don't understand why you're so hyper focused. This is crazy. It's wild. Do you understand? And I understand where she's coming from because I feel the same way. I can talk to someone else and I can walk them through the steps that I need to take. But when it comes to me, it's a different ball game. Completely different ball game. And it's sad. It's very sad because there are people who genuinely reach out and say, Well, I hope at the end of my journey I look as good as you. Well, I hope at the end of the, and I hope at the end, and I give them the best advice. But when it comes to me, about myself, some days it's great. Some days I'm the one that needs to be on social media talking with other people, trying to figure out what works for them. I have a good team behind me. Great team. I have a good group of doctors, multiple different doctors that I work with, and some, if I needed to, I could. I have, a psychotherapist who, well, she's amazing in multiple ways. I just made an appointment to go talk to like a general counselor so I can start doing that. I think that always helps. I grew up in therapy, and not because there was an issue. My parents always believed in therapy. I do too. I think it's wonderful. I do. But one of the main reasons why I wanted to talk about, body dysmorphic disorder or body dysmorphia is because this has been consuming me. And I know for a fact that there are multiple people that are going through the same thing, whether it's body dysmorphic disorder or imposter syndrome. There's so many different things that change when you lose weight, especially if you've lost a massive amount. I know that after bariatric surgery, they talk to these patients, they give them, sometimes little pamphlets or booklets to talk about how sometimes relationships can change as confidence builds, or sometimes the if the husband has bariatric surgery, the wife starts to feel inferior because there's a lot of different shifts in relationships. Nobody prepares you for for this for this at all. Whenever you're issued a medication, or a prescription is written and you take the medication, you do all the things and you lose the weight. Unless you're really in tune with yourself, sometimes this can completely consume you before you realize that this is an actual issue. This is a real, valid issue. And it is consuming, unfortunately. Okay, so now that we know that body dysmorphic disorder or body dysmorphia is it's a real thing. My feelings are validated, my thoughts, everything. I'm not crazy. This is an actual thing that I'm going through. So how do we fix it? I'm one of those kind of people. How do we fix it? Where do we go from here? Medication, therapy, time, grace. I need to know where you go from here. I don't want to feel like this. I'm worthy to look this way because I eat this way. I do the things. So I'm not going to dump a whole bunch of more money into plastic surgery to start having plastic surgery on my face that might not even be warranted. I know that there's a lot going here. I know that body dysmorphic disorder is a mental health disorder. The way that you view yourself a lot of times is skewed. I'm proud of myself. I love myself. I would never do anything to harm myself. But I hate myself. I hate my face. I don't want to look in the mirror because I don't like what I see. If I can't have a filter on my face, we're not taking a picture. I don't want you to take a picture of me without a filter, and you're certainly not going to post it. How dare you? Why are you arguing with me about all these things? This is how I feel. This is how I view myself. These are all feelings, emotions, things that I have expressed at one time or another, and it's exhausting. It is exhausting because you get to a place where you're just like, okay, whether it comes from God or I need help. This is horrible. What I'm putting myself through. I have put my makeup on and then taken it off, thinking I missed a step. I have sent pictures of my face to one of my doctors early in the morning with circles and arrows and what's wrong with this? Can I fix this or can I do that? And my doctor just said, well, good morning. let's keep in mind that nobody's perfect, and I think you're going a little overboard, so let's bring it down a couple of notches. There's nothing wrong with that part of your face at all. I think what you're seeing is a little bit of age. That's it, a little bit of age. If you want, you can get like some creams, and I appreciate it. There are times when it's overwhelming. So, with medication and therapy, I know that in time I will work through it. It definitely doesn't happen overnight because I would do just about anything if it did. But I'm obviously going to do whatever it takes to move past it. But again, I know that it can happen. It is something that happens. It is more common than most people think, talk about. It can be as bad and or lead to disassociation. It can be as bad or lead to almost like a state of disassociation. Whenever I make a post on social media and I post pictures that were taken in natural settings, no filters, next to my mom, next to my kids, people comment, beautiful family, and this, and it manifests over into other thoughts like, I know that my family is beautiful and things like this, but whenever people comment and they say, oh, you look beautiful there and there's no filter involved, I don't believe it. There's no way. There's no way that I look beautiful. Why would you say that? Oh, you're trying to insult me because you notice that I'm telling you all the different places you can take your mind to. It's unhealthy. It's an unhealthy playground at times. But like I said, with medication, therapy, you talk through the emotion, the feelings. Why do I feel this way? Time. Remove yourself from that circumstance, situation, whatever. So one of my doctors that I work with, pretty consistently said, I want you to take 5 pictures of your face every day without a filter. You can do it with makeup, without makeup, I don't care. 5 every day. I said, okay. And then I want you to look at those pictures and I want you to go through and I want you to circle all the things that you like about your face. Okay. And I do it. Circle all the things that you like about your face. And then I don't want you to go back and look, reanalyze or anything. I want you to, at the end of every week, I want you to pick 2 days worth of pictures and I want you to go through and I want you to see if you feel the exact same way about those pictures that you took previously. And it's wild because I don't. If I take a picture today and I circle things that I don't like about my face, when I look at that picture on Wednesday afternoon, my feelings have changed. Only one time have I ever agreed with the way that I felt at that moment, and that's how I know that this is bigger than me. That's how I know that I have to be smarter and be in control and be responsible for my own thought process. So it is something that's definitely going to take some time. It isn't something that is, like I said, fixed overnight, but it is a battle. I don't battle with what to eat, what time to eat, how much water to drink, all the normal things in weight loss, GLP. I don't battle with what to do with supplements or what most people do when they're on these journeys. It's not an issue for me. I've got that part. My battle is a mental health battle. My battle is I need to look back at the woman in the mirror and I need to appreciate her. I need to thank her. I need to give her grace and tell her it's okay. Give yourself some time to adjust. It's not easy. And then when the people that you love so much, that whether they've been supportive or not, that are still around, it doesn't always feel comfortable to have these conversations because a lot of times they try to empathize. They're like, oh my gosh, that must be awful. That must be difficult. That must be really, really hard for you. And you're like, shh, if you only had any idea how hard this was for me. You don't always want to just open up and talk about it because you're afraid of being judged or of somebody thinking that you're crazy. You're not crazy. Not at all. This is one of those things that you hope never happens, but at first I didn't even recognize it until I talked about it with my provider, and he said, yeah, you've got a little bit of body dysmorphia going on, but that's to be expected, Jennifer. Everything has changed. Your job, your body, your hair, your, everything. Every single aspect of your life has changed. Give yourself some time to adjust. He gave me some suggestions for some healthy exercises. My other doctor has me taking pictures. Everybody is working together for the greater good. Everyone. Now I'm going for hormone testing. That also could play a part of it. But again, I wanted to make this because I hope this helps somebody else. I hope they understand that while this is not something that is across the board for everybody, it is a normal thing to experience when you've had drastic change, physical change. It wasn't something I expected, and it makes me feel uncomfortable. It makes me feel embarrassed. It makes me feel angry. It makes me feel disappointed. But the flip side is, it also makes me very proud that I can be as vulnerable and as fluid with everyone. It also makes me feel very hopeful that doing all of the things that I've been told to do, that this will resolve itself. But better yet, it makes me feel proud again, because I know everything I did to get to this point had to come at some kind of price. You know what I mean? Like, nobody just gets off, like, something had to. But this is a struggle. It's an everyday battle. It really is. And if you're struggling with the same thing, just know that there is hope. There are things that work really well, and sometimes it requires a lot more hands-on. There are different levels. Some people, like I said, it causes some people to go into like a suicidal state, or to wear their hair over their face if they're focused on their nose, bring their hat down, cover their face, refuse to go to functions, won't allow their picture taken, won't go outside, can't get I mean, it could, there are different stages or levels, and for that, it makes me sad, but also grateful that I'm not there. But there are times when it has affected my everyday choices on whether I go to the store or whether so it's not easy. It's not, and I hope this helps someone.